All right, welcome everyone to another episode of the Sylvester Stallone podcast. I think I got it right this time. We used to be kind of a network, but we're not anymore. We're just a show on a network, which is the last of the Action Heroes podcast network, with me as always, and it will always be as always. This is the Holy Trinity. I'm just going to say it right now. This is the Holy Trinity. Myself and Doug, not necessarily in that order, but I always go first anyways. But all right, Craig's first. He's the Godfather. Craig, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are.
Yeah, hi, I'm Craig. I'm part of the network here, last of the Action Heroes podcast network. My main contribution to the network, aside from this show, is the Slycast, which is, a year-by-year cinematic journey through Sly's filmography. We've worked our way into the mid-90s. Most of the older episodes that were before the network was a thing have been going up. I think once a month I've been posting like a classic Slycast. You should be able to access most of our classic episodes here on this feed, which is an awesome feed, by the way, man. I was looking at it the other day, and I mean, the amount of content that just gets pumped out on this, the amount of work that people are putting in on this network is just amazing. Like, glad that I don't have to contribute in order for this network to succeed.
But we get Craig's stamp of approval. This guy has been podcasting since I was like 12 years old. So, hey, Doug, why don't you tell us who you are?
Yeah, my name is Doug, and I'm part of the Rocky Minute podcast, where we go through the Rocky films, analyzing 1 minute of film at a time. We're working our way through Rocky 3 right now. And Craig, I was also looking at the feed recently, and I was thinking that I'm probably, one of the founders of the feed, but probably the least action of all the characters that are featured, because, Rocky isn't known as an action star, not like Arnold or Dolph Lundgren or, John Claude. But here we are. We're just kind of in the backseat of the action bus, just plugging away at our little drama movie show.
The Rocky Minute and Slycast are very popular shows on the feed. You guys are always top tier numbers. And it's funny when Craig actually uploads a classic Slycast, it beats a lot of our newer stuff. They're like, I want to hear more Craig on a different feed. But anyways, we love it. So, hey, it brings eyes to the feed. I don't care. Bring it.
Yeah, the one thing I will say, a lot of the positive feedback I heard about Slycast was, and you've sort of, I think, perfected this, Ryan, by devoting whole seasons to things. On the Slycast, for us to do 2.5 hours on a movie, especially a movie that probably doesn't deserve 2.5 hours, I got a lot of feedback from people that were like, hey, your First Blood and First Blood Part 2 discussion was just a great, great episode because it was so long. And I think people really just appreciate those really long, detailed discussions about movies. And like I said, you perfected it by devoting whole seasons to movies. And then the micro minute or the minute podcasts have drilled into that even more. Yeah. Although you get those in bite-sized pieces. So unless you're going to wait for Doug to do the entire Rocky 3, but I think that's really the thing that people responded to most with Slycast was our format.
Great way of putting it. We all have different shapes and sizes of our show, different angles of attack and what have you. And what I love is we've taken our three personalities and style of show, and we kind of combine it on this one podcast, which I like, where we break down a Stallone film that is not a Rocky or Rambo film, because now it's official. I can say I knew way back when I created this channel with you guys that I was going to do a Rambo podcast, and so I was being selfish, saying I don't want to talk about the Rambo films because I'm going to dedicate, like I've done with the Rocky films, the Rambo franchise, and it's now officially started. It's called It's a Long Road, the Rambo series podcast. Again, at the time of this recording, it's official. I'll be interviewing David Morrell. I'm actually almost done reading First Blood again for the second time, so I have it fresh in my head when I talk to him. I got some great questions in the back of my pocket that I hopefully he'll answer. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to picking his brain about the character of John J. Rambo. On the show, people like Craig and Doug will also guest star as hosts, because I'm going to have a rotating cast of hosts throughout that time. So I suspect both of you will make numerous appearances throughout the 5 seasons. I really hope you guys come on and enjoy your time there. And Craig will be the first guest host, the inaugural episode where we start discussing the movie. And I think it goes without saying that Craig should be that one that does that.
I appreciate that. And I got to say that I know this David Morrell interview is about you, so I don't want to interject myself into things, but I finally had the guts to reach out to David when we did our First Blood Part 2 35th anniversary episode, which was the first episode of Slycast on the network.
Yes.
And I figured that was the occasion where it was finally appropriate to reach out to him. And the one thing I really appreciate about David Morrell is there's a lot of different ways that people could handle a character that has overshadowed them. I mean, we know who David Morrell is. People in the action movie fan community know who he is, but your general Joe Schmo that's turning on AMC and seeing First Blood for the millionth time doesn't know who David Morrell is. But it's the fact that David Morrell hasn't run from it. He's embraced it. He's still willing to sit down and talk to people about it. And I can't wait for your interview because you do some of the best interviews that I've heard in this sort of Stallone sphere, if you will. And I know that David Morrell's a really intelligent, well-spoken guy. So I know that the conversation's going to be awesome, and I can't wait to hear it.
Oh, thanks. The pressure's on. Okay. All right.
I've probably said this on every episode we've done together, but seriously, folks, if you're listening and you haven't listened to Ryan's chat with composer Bill Conti yet, after you're done listening to this or watching us live, go find it on the network feed and listen to it because it's the definitive Bill Conti interview, in my opinion.
Oh, wow. That's high praise. Wow. Thank you.
I mean, it is. And the other thing I've always admired while we're making this like the puff up Ryan's ego show is you're not afraid to ask questions. That's something that I suffer from. You know, I'm inviting somebody to chat with me and you have an ability to ask people tough questions without making it seem like you're sucker punching them, which is a very hard thing to do. And you did it with Bill Conti. It's a really, really hard technique to master.
You're just lucky David Morrell's still doing interviews.
Inside joke. Oh, man. Oh, I wish I could say what the joke is.
Anyway. Go for it. It's just Donald. Donald's not going to narc on us.
No, I know he will. Yeah, so I'll just say there was an individual that interviewed David Morrell, and it was such a horrible...
Oh my goodness, yes.
This person, they won't even listen to this. They don't listen to our show anymore. So this individual just did a horrible job some years ago, and we are always amazed that David has... Okay. All right. Now, we got through all that preamble. I'm sorry to our audience, but if they know us, they already know we do this kind of crap. So
Donald says he knows.
Oh, okay. Yeah, welcome to our Discord. So we have a Discord. I'm going to keep plugging it. Donald is always there. He's one of the best fans of our network. He's been with Craig since the Camel Clutch podcast. If you join our Discord, you can come in live and watch us record live, interact with us, give us things to talk about even during the show, and Donald's really good at that. There's a description of every episode of how to join our Discord, so it's easy to do, and it's free to use. Okay, guys, we are doing something a little bit different. We are covering a Sylvester Stallone film, produced and written by Mr. Stallone, but he is not starring in it. Doug, when was the first time you saw this film?
Last week when you sent it to me.
Oh, wow. I saw this in theaters opening weekend. It was probably a Saturday morning. I had a theater that I could walk to from my house in New Jersey. Man, I was so on board with seeing this flick.
Why were you excited to see it in the theaters?
I wish Stallone would focus on more of the behind-the-scenes stuff and producing and screenwriting. This is a script based on a book, but it's a Sylvester Stallone script. That's a big deal. I don't know why he decided not to continue down that path. I know that Homefront sort of had a development where at one point he was going to star in it, and then he decided, I guess, I don't know if he thought he was too old, which I can't imagine, seeing the roles he's done. But for whatever reason, he handed it off to Statham and stayed on as producer.
He did admit to being too old to play the main character. And in fact, his original draft of this was written for the Rambo character, was it not?
I didn't know that, but watching it, this was my second time seeing it, to answer my own question. I saw it before when it first came out on whatever. I probably rented the movie at Blockbuster in 2013. Streaming services weren't quite that thing back then. I didn't do a lot of streaming back then in 2013, so I probably saw it on DVD. Yes, Stallone would have been 64 during this film, so had they done a Rambo film, which would have been fine, it would have been a granddaughter. It couldn't have been a daughter. That's the only thing. Yeah. They would have had to change it to a granddaughter. There's no way he's...
You know, it felt very Rambo-like, and actually it almost feels like he kind of ripped himself off when he did Last Blood, was the whole sequence where he's at the barn/boat dock.
Yes.
And he's drilling out all the light bulbs and filling them with gasoline and reversing polarity on circuits. I was like, this is totally Last Blood Rambo setting up his environment for later.
This was, of course... 7 to 8 years prior to Last Blood. But yes, it was Stallone must have in the back of his mind. Now, I'm not saying he ripped himself off necessarily, but he wrote both screenplays so he can do what he wants. He said, I kind of like that idea, Homefront, that little unknown film. I'm going to use that again to booby trap my own house. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this movie, more so than even The Expendables, showcases Stallone's ability as a creative force to really understand action beats, and action storytelling. You can say what you want about the direction of this film, but I think overall, if you look at just the way the film is presented from a storytelling angle, Stallone knows those beats. And I mean, I haven't read the book it's based on. It's been sitting on my Kindle probably since 2013.
Oh, really?
It's the last book in a series. Hesitant to read it until I've read the rest in the series.
Great. Let's just talk about that because I found that very interesting. This is based on a book, which I'd forgotten about until I saw the credits roll. I thought Stallone just wrote the screenplay and the story. I didn't know it was based on a novel. So I'm like, okay, it's based on a novel. Cool. So he adapted a novel. And it's written by a guy named Chuck Logan. And it's part of the Phil Broker series. So the character played by Jason Statham plays the character Broker. And it's a 6-book series, which actually, I'm not going to lie to you, it actually kind of intrigues me to kind of read it from the beginning to see how this character grows.
Yeah, like I said, I grabbed this when the movie came out. I think it was probably Kindle Daily Deal or something. I probably got it for $2, and I was like, but it's
the last book in the 6-book series, so I wonder what happens in the 6th book that actually really happened in this film. I mean, it's called Homefront, but
the book is called Homefront.
Yes.
Yeah. I read the blurb of it today, and the blurb indicates an 8-year-old daughter standing up to a bully, which is kind of the setup in the movie. And I think it's very similar, at least in the concept that something as little as that could trigger all kinds of trouble inadvertently. A little incident like a girl standing up for herself against a bully.
Right.
If you get the wrong people involved, things can get out of hand.
Yeah, written by a guy named Chuck Logan. Stallone adapts it. And then it's directed by a fellow named
Fletter?
Gary Fleeter or Fletter. Who knows?
Fletter, yeah.
Now, this guy's career was I'm always curious how people like Gary get jobs.
He's doing a lot of TV work from what I understand now.
He's only 56, so he's not old in the sense of like that's fairly young to keep working behind the camera. You can easily have another 20 years. But this Homefront in 2013 was the last movie that he's directed, like big screen film. But like you said, he's worked in TV since then. He kind of switched to TV. Interesting enough, he worked on the show Kingdom. Did you ever see Kingdom?
No. Is that one of those like Star shows?
No. It's 40 episodes, 3 seasons long, and I'm going to say this 100,000 times every time I talk about Kingdom. One of the greatest TV network shows of all time.
What network was it on? Epix or something?
It was on DirecTV for a bit.
Oh, okay.
But
so it might have been like a Starz original.
Something
I think Starz and DirecTV have a relationship.
Yeah, the original network was Audience Network. It was a channel that was owned by AT&T, so they tried to do their own streaming service. It didn't really do very well, but it got re-released on Netflix is how I'm able to watch it. I don't know if it's available in the USA Netflix, but if it stars Frank Grillo, by the way. But this show is the real deal.
Grillo's on it, so is it like a crime show?
No, he plays a retired MMA fighter who runs a gym, and it's a family drama about him and his sons and his life as a retired MMA fighter, and his sons are both MMA fighters.
Oh, okay.
It's very good. Honestly, guys, if you don't watch the show by the time we record next, I might have to find new co-hosts because...
I mean, it might not be streaming on Netflix here.
If Grillo's in it, I'm all in. That guy.
He is excellent. And this is the thing about Grillo. He's in this film, of course. We'll talk about him. But I feel so bad for him because he's such a great, charismatic actor. And he has such a late start to his career. Like, he's already 56 himself.
Did you guys ever see Warrior?
Isn't that Tom Hardy in that one?
Yeah, Joel Edgerton.
Yeah. I've never seen it. I remember when it came out, though.
Like, I watched this movie, I was noting how much I loved Frank Grillo, and then just on a whim, I put on Warrior the other day, and Frank Grillo's in it. He's
in that too,
Joel Edgerton's trainer.
Oh.
First of all, the movie is incredible.
I've heard nothing but good stuff, yeah.
Grillo's just awesome in it, too.
Well, that's awesome. Well, now I got to see it. Maybe we should do a review of that one on our other Last of the Action Heroes, because I've heard it's a very good movie. And I
count me in.
Okay. So this guy, Fred, he's gone on to do other things, but he worked on Kingdom, which I find interesting because he worked on Kingdom a year after this film, and he must have seen the Frank Grillo potential because he brought Frank in to do Kingdom, which is an incredible show. So good for at the very least. I guarantee you, Gary Fleder has something to do with Frank Grillo's success as an actor today, because Kingdom actually catapulted Grillo's career. Quite frankly, it really did.
I think like one of the first things I remember him from is that Liam Neeson movie, The Gray.
Was Grillo in that too?
Yeah.
Oh boy, he's been in a lot of stuff I just haven't seen. Maybe that's the problem.
That and then Captain America: The Winter Soldier are like the two.
Right.
Those are like the two first things I remember. I think his first movie, or one of his first movies, might have been The Gray.
And he starred in 2021's actioneer classic movie Cosmic Sin with Bruce Willis.
Did the Wills boys do that one?
They did. That was their premiere episode on our network, actually.
There's been all kinds of troubling talk about Bruce Willis and the state of his...
Is this a mini episode of where there's a Willis, there's a way? We should probably tag those guys, have them jump in and talk about it.
No, but I mean, it seems like people are almost thinking that he's in early onset dementia and he's just being taken advantage of. I haven't seen any recent interviews with him. The Red Letter Media guys, I think I sent this in the group. I'm breaking the wall here. I mean, we have a group chat for all the shows on the network that we'll share stuff with and do our planning. I think I sent it on that, but the Red Letter Media guys, they did like I want to say it was an hour-long recap of the last 12 movies Willis had done. They showed footage from it. The quality just isn't there. And I know Sean Malloy's talked about sort of how these are all just borderline money laundering schemes. And it's just...
yeah, that could very well be a Russian mafia type.
Yeah, but the other thing is to watch Bruce Willis like this, and you think Stallone like came this close, to becoming that guy. I mean, say what you want about him, but the Creed movies, I think, saved him.
Yep. Oh yeah, I agree.
If you look at Backtrace, which we've talked about, and the 2 Escape Plan sequels,
we still have to do part 3. You know that's coming next.
That might have to be the first podcast I'm actually paid for.
No, we got to do it. We got to do it. We're doing it next. I'm making the decree right now. We're doing Escape Plan 3 next. We have to.
Not to get away from Homefront, I told you guys sort of before we went on air that I think there would have been a really great way to make this movie better. I enjoyed this movie, but so the movie starts with the whole setup where Jason Statham's undercover as an outcast rebel motorcycle gang guy, and he's got that beautiful hair.
Oh, gorgeous.
Just great mane.
Looked realistic, too.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
He's with, I think it was Stallone's buddy, Chuck Zito. They're about to do a meth deal, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the DEA shows up. Chuck Zito's hothead son, of course, gets himself killed. And then Zito blames Broker for that. What do you guys think about this idea? What if we didn't get that reveal until Gator finds that folder? So the movie starts with just Broker and his daughter showing up in that small town.
Oh, I see. We don't see the sequel. Well, you know why we got that, or they should have done it as a flashback. It's because it's an action sequence. Because we don't get action till an hour into the film.
I was thinking about how much cooler that would have been, because front loading it with that sequence is, you know, that he's got some kind of skill set. There's no mystery to the character.
Right.
And I thought it would have been cool to discover the character as Gator did. And man, that would have been really cool. And that's the other thing about this movie, is you don't know what Stallone's raw script looked like. And he was a producer and the screenwriter, but there was a director involved. Ultimately, it's the director's vision. I almost wonder, like, how the script was sort of manipulated by the director. But there were a lot of Stallone moments in this that felt right out of the Stallone playbook. There were a bunch. One of the main examples I would give is the "I asked you twice" rule on the playground when the kid's bullying the daughter. She said, "I asked you twice," and then she finally hits him. To me, that felt like something that, I don't know if it's in the book or not, but that felt like a genuine Stallone moment to me.
Do you want to do the plot, Doug? Did you have a plot beat by beat?
I could run through it real quick.
Yeah, let's do it.
Phil Broker is undercover agent in a motorcycle gang that's dealing meth, and the deal goes wrong, and one of his motorcycle gang confidants has his son killed, and the motorcycle gang guy swears vengeance on Broker. Well, we cut to, does it give a time frame? I don't even remember if it does.
It says 2 years later.
Oh, did it? I missed it. Okay, my fault.
It says it on screen, yep.
So 2 years later, Phil and he's a single dad with his 8-year-old daughter living in backwoods Louisiana.
She celebrates her 10th birthday in the movie. And you said 8 because in the book she's 8.
That's totally why I said 8.
Yeah.
It was played by a 12-year-old actress at the time, funny enough. But anyways.
Newcomer, too. She was, this was her first role.
Might as well just say before you continue with your plot, played by a young woman named Isabella Vidovich. She was born in Chicago. She's currently still active in the acting world. She has some reoccurring roles on Veronica Mars in 2019 and Law & Order Organized Crime in 2021. Yeah, she's done sort of steady work here and there. Not a lot of work, but steady work. More television than film. But yeah, it did say introducing her in 2013, but no, she'd already been in 2 films before that. So she worked in TV from 2006 to 2012. So I guess it was her first big...
Oh, her big movie.
Yeah.
Big theatrical release, maybe?
Yeah, it was her big release. And... speaking of her, she did for a child actor. She's 12. I think she was just fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, some child actors are just, oof. They're kind of cringe. Yeah. It's just because they're kids. You know, they just don't get the
David Mendenhall comes to mind.
That's over the top kid, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Garbage.
I still love it. So Broker's daughter, she gets into a scuffle at school. And the kid that she beats up, her parents are tied into the local meth trade. It's learned that Phil was part of this undercover operation and is now living in hiding. So the meth group has ties to the original motorcycle gang that Phil screwed over. They put out word that Phil's in town, hiding out, and they come looking for their vengeance.
So the idea is that the meth people who make the meth in the town, they wanted somebody else to handle distribution. So they're like, hey, if we get the motorcycle gang, the Outcasts, ooh, what a clever motorcycle name. Who came up with that brainy name? Like, hey, guys, come on. We got to name our badass motorcycle gang something. I know we got Skull Bones. We've got Killers. We're the Outcasts, man. Nobody wants us, but together we're a gang. Anyways, old motorcycle names were stupid. It was
probably based on, like, the Outlaws.
I guess.
Since Chuck Zito was playing the main guy, he was a president of the Hells Angels in New York.
Was he really?
In real life, yeah.
I better be careful what I say about him.
Yeah, tread lightly.
That's a great name, Chuck. Great name. Outcast, clever. The only name better than the Outcast is Hells Angels, buddy. Okay.
I don't think Chuck cares as long as he got the paycheck.
Yeah. Well, the plot is they wanted distribution, so it was convenient that they were able to find out that, yes, the very guy that is the father of the girl that punched out their kid in the playground for being bullied happens to be the undercover DEA that got the Outcast leader, Chuck Zito, thrown in jail. They're like, if we give you this guy's identity, can you distribute our drugs? And we don't have to worry about distribution. We'll just make it, and that will be the deal. Yay, win for everyone. But that is the biggest plot hole in this whole film, I think. And maybe I missed it because I missed it 2 years later. Why did Jason Statham's character retire as a DEA undercover agent, but move into the very town that housed all these people? Like, why did he pick this location? Was there any?
Well, the wife dies at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know if the wife dies after the DEA raid goes bad.
I think she does. I think we're led to believe it was kind of recent-ish.
When they're leaving at the end of the movie, the daughter says, "Why are we leaving? You told me Mom told us to come here." So I think that town is where his deceased wife was from.
Okay.
It seemed to me like the Outlaws traveled to get there.
They did, but characters within the town happened to have relationships with this gang.
Well, it was just Winona Ryder who did.
That's still one too many characters. That just so happened to have.
Well, it didn't seem too convenient to me.
Okay.
The plot, it wasn't clear on that point to me either, because I thought that he was placed there as part of like a witness protection thing because that deal went so bad and the guy swore to get vengeance on him and his whole family.
He was still living under the name Broker. I mean, he didn't change his identity. Yeah. He wasn't living there under his undercover name.
Right.
I think it was, hey, the guy that did this is locked away. Nobody knows your real cover or your real names. You're good there. But it's funny because you got that scene with Clancy Brown where Clancy Brown's, what's the deal with you? You government, you ex-military, you WITSEC, he even says. Clancy Brown knows there's something going on with him.
Let's talk about Jason Statham. He stars in this film. I don't know where you guys stand on Jason Statham, but I looked at his filmography, and to his credit, we're talking about the Bruce Willis garbage and even a lot of Sly's movies and straight-to-video garbage. Jason Statham, I don't know who his agent is or if he's just a smart guy. He doesn't have any real duds. he has been in a lot of films, but he's in less films than I thought. I would have told you he's been in 100 films, but he's actually hasn't been in that many. He's been in almost as many films as Bruce has been in the last 3 years. I'm not even joking. So he actually picks project that I think he wants to work on, because every time I see Jason Statham in a film, he gets his full energy. Mm-hmm. He's a very physical actor. Jason Statham, when he does his fight sequences on screen, boy, he looks good. Mm-hmm. Real life, he's trained in these things, so that's why he's able to do the fighting dance, because he knows how to do it in real life. He's a trained fighter in different disciplines. But at the same time, that translates on screen. Or Sly, we know, he's a slugger. He's actually not a trained fighter. This film benefits from the fact that, Statham can move.
That Statham really is the closest thing we have to a modern action hero. But the other thing I think that's unique about Statham is, if you look at where he came from those Guy Ritchie films, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and even Snatch. Those are not action movies. They have gunplay in them, and they have, they're crime movies. But
yes,
Jason Statham, he came out of like a legitimate acting background. And I think it wasn't like, hey, let's take this guy that knows a couple of different disciplines and put him in front of the camera. He was already a guy that could act, that also had this amazing background in physical combat, that's kismet, right?
Yeah, I mean, the guy's bona fide. Like, he's a fighter. You could tell he's trained. He knows what he's doing. I'm saying, like, he's as close as we get to a modern day action hero. Look at the others that have tried, like John Cena. He tried his hand at the action thing and it didn't work out. I mean, you got Keanu Reeves, you got The Rock. They're doing their own thing and they're pretty successful at it.
But they're more part of these big franchise stuff too, where I feel like Statham is kind of pumping out those standalone films too. I know he's part of the Expendables and a part of the Fast and Furious, but he has a lot of great standalone one-offs, and I think Statham might be someone we should investigate more on our feed.
Yeah, he did that really cool movie. I think it was called Safe.
I haven't seen
that. Was a cool movie. He was in with a little girl. She had a bank routing number in her head, and that was the only way this crime lord was going to be able to get his money.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They were chasing her, and Statham's character becomes her protector. I remember really enjoying that movie.
This film does something that it's well documented that I despise about action scenes.
Oh, what's that?
When these fights are happening, it's really close, quick cuts, the jumpy camera angles. Like, you got a guy who's a well-trained fighter who knows what he's doing, but you cut his balls off by doing that. Let him showcase it 100%. In like a wide shot, like an action scene.
That would be my biggest complaint with this film is you have a guy that can do it. To, give it the Bourne treatment where you have to make him look like he can do things when you didn't need to. There were so many instances. The gas station fight could have been so much better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, there goes Craig.
So for our listeners, Craig granted he actually ended at the end of a sentence, but he just popped
back on. Oh, there he is. All right, gas station scene, go.
No, I was going to say, you have that gas station fight. Even more importantly, the barn dock fight where the action in that, you could tell it was so well choreographed, and it was just, the coverage was just shit.
Mm. Now, you said the Jason Bourne treatment, and that's what I always think of too when I see this shit, is because Matt Damon didn't know how to fight, so they had to cover it up with that creative editing and directing. But this, especially the best two fighters you have in this movie, they fight in the dark that you can hardly see. Him and Grillo. Like, you can hardly see anything as it is. Plus, you throw in this crappy directing on that fight. Like, those two guys are fighters. Let them fight. And show the whole thing.
Yeah, so we have a big showdown between Grillo and Statham's character. I totally agree that what a missed opportunity. Maybe it's just Gary not knowing Frank's ability, which I find odd because Frank Grillo is also a trained fighter in real life. It's too bad they didn't have a dance off. Like, I don't know why they wouldn't just give it an extra minute or two. The film's an hour and 40 minutes long, and they could have sped up some of the slow-mo shots. They had about a handful of those that were unnecessary. Why is everything slow motion? Just tell the story and move on. 10 slow motion shots. Like, why are we going slow motion here? I don't understand.
To fill up time. They built up Frank Grillo's character to be this scary badass, and you give him like a 20-second fight and death scene.
Yeah.
Not even 20 seconds.
Maybe they didn't know what they had. I mean, maybe I guess they did know what they had because, like I said, the director hired him for Kingdom.
Or maybe that was like a mea culpa, right? Like, hey, I know I screwed up. Here's this great show for you to be in.
Or the editing was a disaster. Mm-hmm. Who knows? Sly was let into the editing room. Look, I don't want anyone to be better than me, so let's tone down Frank a little bit.
well, he was a producer. But one thing I will say, that wasn't a disaster here is this cast. We've already talked about Statham. I mentioned Clancy Brown, who I always love seeing. Seeing the Kurgan in any movie is always great.
I'm actually playing a video game with him as the main actor. It's called Detroit Human. It's just cool. It's a story-rich, choices matter cinematic video game. And so
nice.
You make these choices and you hit WSD at a certain time. It's like a story-type video game where you control the character's life. And he's in it and he's great. His character is so good at it. They motion captured. It's his face and everything. So, great actor.
That's cool. Yeah, I think if anything, the sheriff character was a little underdeveloped, and I think that's probably just consequence of editing. But
what a good twist, though, that he wasn't bad. I thought he was going to be corrupt.
Yeah. He was using Gator as an informant or whatever, but Kate Bosworth was tremendous here.
Was she method acting? And I mean method acting? Because
it took me a while to even realize it was her.
Yeah, I think she played that character so well. The pettiness of it, which basically brings all this hell to town. Winona Ryder, which was just such a weird... I had to keep double checking that. I'm like, it looks a lot like Winona Ryder, but it doesn't seem like a movie Winona Ryder would make in 2013.
So going back to Kate Bosworth and Winona Ryder, two actresses in their own right who have been in some big films, obviously Winona, but even Kate, some big productions, big films. But I found I guess good for them, but they both played deplorable characters. And I found that kind of odd for a film to have two, semi-A, if not very strong B-list actresses to play deplorable characters in the same film. I almost thought that was good for them, but kind of odd that the teacher, who was the good female, so to speak, in this movie, the kind of the sort of off-screen love interest for the future broker, the part two of this was show them together, obviously. I'm surprised one of those two wasn't the teacher, and that the redhead was one of the bad. The unknown actress was the good girl, but the two known actresses were these, one was a meth addict, and the other one was a... set up the kill for Broker's character. So interesting. It kind of threw me off because it goes against casting type, but good for them.
Yeah, and both of those characters have a redemption as well.
In their own rights, they both play like the darling sweetheart type of character. I like to see them. I love it when characters step outside their, what they're known for. Yeah,
it threw me off, but not necessarily in a bad way. But it's like, that's weird. But Kate Bosworth was very, very thin in this film, and I just hope she's doing okay.
Yeah, and then James Franco, who hasn't had a really good couple of years,
because this movie came out a year before stuff came out. So James Franco was doing just fine as far as the public was concerned in 2013, but 2014 rolls around.
So apparently, if I remember correctly, Franco was running some kind of acting school. Some of his classes with female students involved, I guess, exercises that aren't appropriate. If I recall, it was pressure to actually have sex. For sex scenes.
And the cases claimed that the pupils were subjected to, quote from the proceedings, sexually exploitive auditions and film shoots, and they had to sign away their rights to the recordings. Such stuff was Franco was serving as their acting teacher or mentor, and then one former student stated that Franco would always make everybody think there was possible roles on the table if we were to perform sexual acts or to take off our shirts in his projects. And another alleged that Franco held sex scenes class, like a sex scenes class, and he removed students' vaginal guards while simulating oral sex with them to teach them how it looks on screen type thing.
Oh, man, just what ghoulish, disgusting stuff.
Those are the allegations, and things were settled out of court, so take that for what it is. One was paid close to $1 million. The other one was paid $2.2 million. So
the fallout from it was pretty extreme. It pretty much ended his working relationship with Seth Rogen. They were friends and partners, and Franco really hasn't done anything high profile. But if we focus on his character and his performance in this movie, it's another really strong aspect of this movie. The Gator character isn't physically imposing, but he's still a very dangerous looking guy.
Yeah.
The scene where Kate Bosworth is his sister.
Right.
Since she considers her husband a pussy, she asks the Gator character to just scare Broker a little bit. to let him know that what he did to her husband and, the embarrassment it caused and the daughter beating up the son, just to sort of punish him for that. And I think the whole sequence where Gator goes to Broker's house, he's kind of stalking them, and then he goes inside, he steals the stuffed animal, he takes the cat. I thought that was all really well done. I just can't forgive the finding the folder that's got all the information he needs on Broker. Like, why would Broker just keep that shit lying around? You need it to advance the plot, but to me, it just seemed like there was other ways they could have gotten there. That was like the laziest part of this movie for me.
That kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit, too. I said, why would he have old case files and stuff? That wouldn't be at his house. It would be in a department somewhere or like archives and stuff, especially like his undercover information. Like that would be buried.
It's a MacGuffin.
We got to move the plot along. We can't really come up with another way for him to stub it. So of course, we have a manila folder of all of his information. Hey, this is what he's done in his career. Let's just snag this. Yeah. Like it wasn't locked up or anything. Yeah.
I think that sequence was so good. That's what I think Gary Fleder, I think it's probably what he excels at, is that kind of filmmaking, because that was a really well done sequence. Mm-hmm. And I think Franco, a Gator going up to the door and seeing it's open and knocking and being like, hi, it's your neighbor, to sort of give himself cover for going in the house. And then just doing like that real sinister stuff, like taking the stuffed animal and cutting its head off and leaving it for Broker to find. And then Broker sort of realizing that somebody had invaded his personal space and him trying to figure out who it is. And of course, he naturally thinks it's Kate Bosworth's husband, who was embarrassed by him and emasculated in front of his wife and his child. It's kind of a cool sequence of events, and I really enjoyed that section of the movie. Like I said, except for the convenience factor.
I just want to touch on Franco real quick.
Of course.
And issues offset notwithstanding. I also read that his performance in this was criticized. I thought he was masterful at having that quiet intimidation look to him, but also he could turn on the charm and be like the friendly neighbor just at the drop of a dime.
And he does that scene where he brings the whiskey to Clancy Brown.
Yeah, exactly. I thought he was great. And I actually felt bad for him for roughly half of his time on screen.
Well, that was what's interesting. We're led to believe he's the big bad guy, but he's actually kind of caught up in his own crap. Like it's almost
he just wants a way out. You could see that whole town was sort of living at a level of poverty. And however successful he was at what he was doing, he didn't have the pipeline he needed to get his product out there. So it was just, he saw an opportunity and he took it.
When his sister first approached him, he didn't want to have any part of this, and then he got, talked into it by her, and then things snowballed and went from bad to worse, as these things normally do.
Right.
There was a line in the sand that once he crossed over that line, he was bad for forever. There was no redemption for him.
Oh, yeah.
Couple things though, watching this film, it didn't do that great at the box office.
It made like $30 million on over its budget, didn't it?
So it's not a terribly big budget, and it made, you're right. So it made $30 million over the budget. So it doubled its budget. So it made money back. It didn't lose money. That's for sure. When I was watching it, I found that this movie might have been, I don't mind a R type film. We actually criticized Expendables Part 3 for not just, why are you guys not rated R like the first two films? Expendables Part 2 was rated R for violence and what have you. But I found this film, and I'm not one to really criticize swearing, but I found it too much. And it took me away from the film of just enjoying the film. Is the director or Stallone? Like even he doesn't swear all that much in his films. But I found the cursing more crude than I usually. Was that just me?
I didn't notice it. Next time I watch it, I'll have to look for that.
Well, maybe because
that's just your gosh darn nice Canadian sensibility.
No, I guess I was starting to watch it as what could have been. Like this movie, for example, did you ever see the movie Walking Tall with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? That was
Johnny Knoxville. Yeah,
it's PG-13, and that was a fun, enjoyable film where you got to see the bullies being taken down in the town or whatever it was. And I feel like this film, the best parts of this film was the Jason Statham. He was great. Every scene he's in, he was fantastic. I like him a lot. And he was great in this film. I just found all the other characters around him were gross. And I wish there was some sort of balance between his taking care of his daughter, fighting off the bullies, the whole gas station sequence. Oh, that's fine. Even the action beats were great and fine. The blood, I don't mind. I just wish they maybe Walking Talled it a little bit to make it more of a wide general audience. I think more people would have seen it. If I was the producer of the movie company, I might have been, let's get a wider audience. Like, we can have the violence and stuff. Like Walking Tall was successful with The Rock, or The Rundown. Those type of films are action-packed with a lot of punching and bolts and flying and everything. I guess if they just toned it down just a smidge, and they could have had a lot of the same beats without it being, I don't know. I found it a little crude. I don't know why.
That might be a Statham thing.
Oh, I don't see a lot of his films. Is that something?
Well, in the Guy Ritchie films, for sure.
With those films, I don't know why it doesn't bother me.
It's definitely something I'm going to be hyper aware of next time I watch this.
I don't know. So I don't know if it's a Sly insertion. The director said, "Hey, let's amp it up a bit." That's what I'm kind of curious about. Did Sly write those beats in the script, or did they amp it up? I don't know.
I didn't notice it that much. Then again, I was watching it I don't want to tell you where I was watching it because I don't want to get fired. But
where are you watching?
Yeah, I didn't notice it when what?
What do you mean? You're watching it at work. Oh, Doug. Man, double dipping.
I would never use the taxpayers' money to watch.
Doug right now, he's got a fake blue screen behind him. He's actually at work right now at the sergeant's desk. But he's
No, never. But anyway, I didn't notice the cursing that to be that offensive.
No,
but then again, I'm from New Jersey.
I didn't say offensive. Well, I'm a sailor. I hear it all the time. Maybe as a business model, I was like, this could have been a wider audience. Maybe that's all. I don't know.
All right.
Because nothing else about it was gratuitous.
It's an interesting theory, Ryan, in terms of, if they potentially could have marketed this a little bit different and gone to a wider audience.
Do you want to talk about Jason Statham's fiance? Do I know who she is? Well, her name is Rosie Huntington Whiteley. She's 34, 21 years his junior. They're currently engaged. She has 2 film acting roles, which I found very interesting and odd. She has 2011. She replaced Megan Fox in Transformers: The Dark Side of the Moon. That was her.
Okay.
And then, so she would have been 24 during that film. 4 years later, she was the splendid Aang Harad. Does that ring a bell? The splendid Aang Harad. That was Mad Max.
Yeah, she was the pregnant girl.
Yeah. That's her 2 roles. Isn't that weird? That's just an odd 2 roles to be in.
Statham's 55?
He's 54 and she's 30. Yeah, so I think there's a 21-year difference when I worked out the math.
Yeah.
She was more well known as a Victoria's Secret model, I think, right?
Well, it's not her acting.
No, that's for sure.
Well, good for Statham. Don't get me wrong, and good for her. I mean, he's not a slouch.
Yeah,
I'm
she's
sure.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, he's gorgeous.
She's gorgeous. He's no slouch either.
He's in good shape.
He's in great shape, man. Like, talk about compensating for your bald head.
The other thing I appreciated is he embraced it. There's been movies where he's worn pieces,
right, for the role, but
he hasn't done anything in his private life where he tries to be like, hey, look, I'm not bald. He's got a head shape that works for it, and he's confident enough.
He's got that natural stubble that matches the same length of hair on his head. I love that. I don't know how to...
He's little too, isn't he? 5'8", 5'9".
He's not a big dude.
I think he's even shorter than Sly is. So he's bald, he's short. He got to learn how to fight.
Well, what's he packing downstairs? That's what I.
Let's ask Rosie.
CelebrityHeights.com says he's 5'8" and 3/4.
Oh, him a Slyer going for best short action star.
Depending on what lifts he's wearing.
His booster seat in the producer's office. He's sitting there.
I wouldn't dare say anything like that to Statham face to face.
That's not like Danny DeVito short. I mean, I would feel in perfect company with Sly and Statham. If the 3 of us were hanging out, none of us would jump out as being the tall, freaky guy. Just 3 normal, heighted dudes.
Yeah, there you go.
This movie, if I had a critique of it, is most movies suffer from this. It's the rush to the end syndrome, and a lot happens. So the bikers invade the house. Statham's friend, who had a great sequence, the fight in the horse barn. What a good friend that guy is. And you get the pitchfork stabbing.
That's his name, Omar Benson Miller. Yeah, he's a great actor.
He was in that show Ballers with The Rock. But so you have that, and he's the one that basically tips off Broker that there's something going on. He makes it out to his truck and he honks the horn. And then we get that really abbreviated Grillo fight.
Yeah, what a waste.
For me, it gets the rush to the end syndrome, and then you've got like the kind of improbable Sheriff gets involved, the cops are involved, and they kind of just let Broker still do his thing, which Doug, with his background, might have a little bit more insight here, but for me, it screamed of being not something that would exist in reality.
Well, Doug, you're a cop, right?
This has been known to be true.
Now, the end sequence, of course, showed Statham's character and Franco's character, with Franco having the daughter as a hostage, fighting on a bridge that nobody could access. Very convenient. Of course, that's another MacGuffin to have nobody able to access the turned bridge so they could fight it out. Now, the beating that Statham gave Franco's character, short of death, and even putting the gun to his head, but not shooting. Yes, he said that his daughter watching saved that guy's life, Franco's life. But did he break any laws?
I want to rewind a little bit because for me, the problem was, Ryan, when the cops get to his house and he kind of just commandeers a car.
No jury of his peers, even if the cops charge him, they'll recognize he's not in his right headspace. His daughter's been kidnapped, and he's a past D age, and they might give him a bit of a slip. I'm just wondering, Doug, the beating that he gave Franco, because Franco stopped fighting, but would they have charged him for anything after that incident, do you think? Or would there have been like a heat of the moment, his daughter was kidnapped?
It's a little bit of a gray area, but when you look at it objectively, what he did was wrong because, if you're defending somebody or yourself, once you reach the point where you can easily detain the guy, all force should stop.
Right.
Okay. He went beyond that. He went way beyond that, including grabbing a weapon and holding it to his head, which just pointing a gun at a person constitutes deadly force, and the cops would have been justified in shooting him.
Right, there you go. That's what I found interesting. The cops, that's what I mean. The cops watching this with a sniper rifle or whatever kind of rifle that guy was carrying. They had a rifle with a scope on it. He could have, and technically should have shot Statham at that point.
Again, I said if you're looking at this objectively, but the subjective nature of the situation, the guy's daughter's right there.
Yeah.
Okay. He's about to off a deadbeat drug dealer. Nobody's going to miss him. Maybe you don't take that shot. Maybe you just try to talk him down, talk him out of a hostage situation. You talk him into surrendering and then, let due process take over.
How did you guys like the ending? I actually kind of like the last scene there.
Awesome. When he goes to prison and Zito thinks it's his lawyer coming to tell him that Broker and his daughter are dead, and he picks up the phone and he sees that it's Broker, the look on his face, and then Broker saying, I'll be waiting for you when you get out. Perfect. More Stallone effing brilliance. Just giving the audience that little sort of treat of being like, yeah, Broker's not going to let this go. So Zito might want to just stay in prison.
Yeah, the one bad guy that didn't get his comeuppance it's waiting for him. And you feel relieved knowing that.
Who is Chuck Zito? Why do I know the name? Am I supposed to know who this is?
He was a Hells Angels president, and then he did a lot of stunt work in Hollywood. He would be like one of those Danny Trejo guys where he would be in the film, but he would also be a stunt performer.
Oh, he had a big role in Oz, I guess, for a while there.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And he's like a Stallone buddy. I know they're friends.
Okay.
They've been seen around Hollywood a lot together.
Yeah, at that pizza place, Mulberry Street Pizza. Well, Sly's in Florida now, though, so I guess he doesn't go to Mulberry Street Pizza anymore.
Was he in a lot of other Stallone films or any other
I'm
Stallone
quickly
films?
looking. I'm seeing if he was in actually any actual Stallone films. From my quick look here, he actually has not been in one Stallone film. Not one.
Yeah.
That's weird.
This ending had a Rambo 2 ending vibes. Find them or I'll find you.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This time we get the win. Or do we get the win this time? Check me out on It's a Long Road, the Rambo series podcast on this network feed.
I just want to say one last thing about the writing of the film. Stallone proved to me once again that he isn't the best at writing tender moments between a father and child. I found the scenes between Statham and his daughter really clunky. Like there's one where he's talking to her by the lake after they were riding their horses or whatever. And it just seemed like I'm waiting for like tenderness, the tear jerking moment. And I'm like, this is just flat.
That could have been a performance thing too. That could have been a little limitation in Statham's skill set.
He has two kids himself. He's a father himself. He could have drawn a little bit on that, but I think it might have just been the writing and or acting or both. Men have a hard time showing their emotions. I guess I'm a tough guy, but But again, the child actor, she was fine. She was fine in this film.
I just wanted to blame Stallone for that.
Stallone was channeling his life with the kid interactions. On.
Yeah.
There's no Instagram in this film, so
I dig this film. I was really excited to watch it again, and I know I kind of pushed for us to do this. I hadn't seen it in quite a few years. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I think it's just a fun movie. Like,
it was fun. It was an easy watch.
It hits all the beats you want it to hit.
I agree. No, it was an easy watch, especially after last episode's fist. Oof, that was a snooze fest.
You're nuts.
You got mad at me. Did you go back and listen to that episode when you got mad at me?
I just hate you casting your dispersions on me, young man.
I'm gaslighting you a little bit. I'm just joking.
No, I know. I thought the performances in this were great. Thought the acting was great. I mean, it's a pretty run-of-the-mill action movie. It had a lot of the same beats that you see in every action film with the fights and the car chases and whatnot. But this is one you can go back and watch over and over again and never get bored.
I agree. No, it's a fun watch, and I'm glad we did it. It definitely falls into the Sly universe. It's written and produced by him, and I'm glad we watched it, which I hope we do some more Statham films. There's quite a few that I haven't seen that I'd be interested in just watching and talking about later in our feed.
Funny, there is another Statham connection with Stallone is he did a remake of Death Race.
Of course.
2000.
And the Expendables, of course.
One of the things that always bothers me in action movies is you'll have Arnold Schwarzenegger out at the grocery store, shopping, which is a joke in itself. You've got this huge Austrian guy and somebody decides to start shit with him. In those movies, you're always like, do you not realize who you're screwing with?
Right.
And this is even kind of true with Stallone in his movie because he's always bulked up. At the gas station, when those two guys are trying to intimidate Statham isn't physically imposing enough to be like, this guy, from their perspective, could hurt us. Whereas if you start shit with Schwarzenegger in a movie, he's big enough to hurt you.
Right. And
And that's another thing that I think makes this movie. We didn't really talk about what we think this movie would have been like if Stallone had starred in it. But for me,
we did. The fight sequences wouldn't have been as good. And that was the big
yeah. But also like that gas station scene, it was believable from the other character's standpoint in that fact that they thought they could sort of intimidate or, not be physically intimidated by Statham until
he's got a slim build on him. Like he's bigger than Bruce Lee, but smaller than Van Damme. I know that's a weird comparison, but it's not this. If you do see him shirtless in some of his films, he's got a six pack and a chest and everything, but it's slim enough that when he's wearing clothes, you wouldn't be able to tell this guy can kick your ass. Yeah.
Another good example is the Expendables movie where he goes to the pickup basketball game and beats up the guy that beat up Charisma Carpenter. It's the same thing. If Schwarzenegger comes to that pickup basketball game, those guys aren't going to act the way they act.
No. Yeah, Pete Schwarzenegger, he's huge. He just walks in. Okay,
and that's the thing that's always bugged me about those movies, and it happens in all of them. The Rock, somebody getting sort of talked down to by The Rock. It's like, come on, what are they seeing? What kind of shrimp glasses are they wearing? That's the other thing I think really benefited this movie is you see what Statham can do, but scenes like that gas station scene work the way they're supposed to because in their eyes, he doesn't look like a huge threat, especially for two people.
A relatively unassuming presence, and then he twists you up like a pretzel.
It's like Doug. Doug walks into the room. He's a big man. He's got big guns. He's got a barrel chest. He's got legs as thick as my waist. I walk in, everyone's like, who's this goof? So I'm more Jason Statham, and Doug, you're more Arnold, and Craig, you're
Danny DeVito.
Yeah, right. I'm the leftover crap. But one thing I want to ask you guys is, do you secretly wish that Stallone had more credits like this? I know I've talked about how much I would love to see him stay on the other side of the camera and do things like this. I think Homefront's a good example of what we potentially could have got.
If he's able to focus, as far as I know, this is the only project where he has like a writing credit, but not an acting credit.
Didn't he write Staying Alive?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But you're right. This is like one of two. But you're sure in all of his films, I think 2 or 3 at the most where he writes that he's not in. But you're right. Yeah.
We'll forgive him for Staying Alive. You can see when he's able to focus solely on the behind the scenes stuff and not when it gets all jumbled together with the acting and everything. It's like he has almost too much on his plate. I would like to see him do this more, where he's just directing or just writing and producing.
As he gets older, maybe he'll do more of what Clint's doing, right? Some more behind the scenes stuff. So that's what
came to mind.
Yeah,
Clint, definitely.
Well, guys, this has been an absolute treat. I'm not joking. Our next review will be Escape Plan 3, so prepare yourselves for that. We have to finish that. No, we got to finish the trilogy. It's happening. So Escape Plan 3, The Extractors, is that what's called, The Extractors?
I don't remember agreeing to this. Like,
strong arming you guys. I'm going to put up a poll. I'm going to have Escape Plan 3 be all 3 choices.
Right, this used to be a democracy. I don't know what happened.
I don't know. Thank you, Donald, for hanging in there with us and that compliment. These discussions are always cool when we have a couple of people ringside, if you will.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I love addressing live comments and stuff. It's great.
Yeah, and we invite, of course, everyone when we go live to join our Discord. It's a lot of fun. Just look at the episode descriptions of almost any episode on the feed. We'll have the Discord invite. I put it in after people upload their shows. Like, you guys, you got to do it for me, but that's okay. That's my job, I guess. So the Discord is there in all episodes, especially this one. Join our Discord. You can join chats, discussions. It's not just for the live shows. It's also people can just talk about action movies and all the different action stars in between recordings. So it's a fun little community. It's building slowly but surely. I think we're near like 30 people or something now. So 30 or 40 people. So it's building. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Sylvester Stallone podcast.